2% of Black Americans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing. There are lots of narratives that are completely false and yet endlessly repeated by Donald Trump and his parasitic bootlickers who hang on his every word. And one of those narratives is the idea that Donald Trump is just doing better for Black Americans on every metric, and that as a result, Black Americans support Trump, I don't know, more than they did in the past, more than they support other Republican presidents. Who knows exactly what the metric they're using is. And Donald Trump will often tout this. He'll say, I'm doing better with the Black Americans, or as he sometimes calls them, the blacks, than who knows who. And it's kind of a weird thing to say from the outset. The reality is that it's also not true. Some of the things Donald Trump will talk about are Black unemployment, wages for Black Americans, among other things. But we now have data. There's a new Quinnipiac poll that breaks down this information, and I want to look at some of the interesting numbers on it. Now, when asked, do you approve of how Donald Trump is handling his job, you will notice that 2% of Black Americans approve of the job Donald Trump is doing as president of the United States. That's the cell in red on the chart that I'm showing you on the screen. You might also notice that Donald Trump's approval rating is only 35% among women. That's the blue shaded cell on the image that we have on screen. And one last notable thing, normally support of Republicans goes up with age. The older groups are successively more and more likely to support the Republican. Right now, approval of Trump among 65 and over Americans is lower than among those aged 50 to 64. Notice the green shaded cell on the chart. So a number of interesting things to talk about here. Number one is that, not surprisingly, once again, Donald Trump's coalition is not really much of a coalition, with the exception of some Hispanic support that he's enjoying, about 28 or 30%, I believe. Donald Trump's constituency is basically middle-aged white men. That is the primary constituency of Donald Trump. And what's fascinating about that is that there are groups that are disproportionately made of middle-aged white men that are not doing well under Donald Trump. Think to Midwestern farmers, historically lifelong Republican Midwestern farmers who are not doing well under Donald Trump because of the tariffs. But as I've said before, just because his key demographic groups aren't doing well as a result of his policy does not mean that they are going to go out and vote for a Democrat. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's get back to the Black Americans thing. The massive victory with the Black Americans that Donald Trump has been touting. 2 years now, he's been saying he's making America greater than ever for Black people. And 2% approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing. Now, we already know what the Trumpists are going to say. If you present them with this information, they will say, David, that's not because Trump isn't doing good things for Black Americans. It's because Black people are on the plantation. They've been bamboozled by Democrats into being against Republicans no matter what the Republican does for them, which is maybe the most patronizing thing that can be said about a group of voters, that they simply don't care what happens. They don't base their support on what Donald Trump is doing. They just support Democrats over Republicans because they are, apply whatever phrase you want, bamboozled, on the plantation, whatever. And this is, of course, extraordinarily disrespectful. It ignores that Black Americans may not support Trump because of his racially tinged policies and his racially tinged comments and the 2 years of playing coy with white nationalism. Give me a break. So the important point here is Trumpists will make a lot of noise about Candace Owens and Blexit, this totally failed movement. It's almost like a fake movement to get Black people to exit the Democratic Party as if it's some kind of a rational choice to vote for Democrats. Trumpists will cheer Diamond and Silk. These are two women who are Black and love Trump. If you haven't heard of them, great. Don't even bother to look them up. They are totally toxic and terrible. Trumpists will cheer that, Ben Carson is part of Donald Trump's cabinet. And then when you look at the numbers, when the rubber meets the road, 2% of Black Americans support Donald Trump. The narrative is false. Do not fall for it. But do follow the David Pakman Show on Instagram at David Pakman Show. I also posted to my Instagram page today, david.pakman, I posted a video from yesterday's Twitch live stream where something happened to my microphone where my voice went down an octave and people started calling me David Chadman on stream. That's my latest post at david.pakman on Instagram. Make sure you're following me there. We will take a quick break. Tom Hartman joins me next to talk about his new book out today. That's after the break.